Hello, children, and welcome to today's session. Just look at the clock and tell me what the time is. Okay, now tell me what time did you get up in the morning? What time are you going to have your lunch? And what time are you going to play with your friends? You see, the time is a very important thing in our everyday life. We need to know time all the time. So sometimes when the class begins and you know that it is a 40 minutes class, the class may get boring. In that case, you keep looking at your watch, waiting for those 40 minutes to pass. So isn't it interesting that time plays such a vital role in our lives? Today, we have got all kinds of clocks all around us. We have clocks in our mobile phones, on our laptops, even in our tablets. We have also got wall clocks in every different room of our house. Now, how do these clocks work? And what about the time when there were no clocks? How did man ever know what time it was? These are some of the questions we are going to answer in this chapter on time and motion. So we know that it is important for all of us to keep track of time. It was important to keep track of time even in olden times. But there were no clocks. At that time, people used to focus on the periodic rising and setting of the sun. So we all know that because of the sunlight, shadows are formed. और इन shadows को कैसे यूज करते थे? हमें ये पता है कि मॉर्निंग की shadow डिफरेंट होती है, आफ्टरनून की shadow बिल्कुल स्ट्रेट राइट अंडर द ऑब्जेक्ट बनती है, इवनिंग की shadow is once again in the opposite direction and it is longer. Depending on the length of the shadow that is cast by an object during the time of the day, a sundial can tell the time of the day. यही sundial हमें जंतर मंतर पे भी मिलता है in Delhi as well as in Jaipur. This sundial is also the basis of a sundial clock that we also have seen in Jantar Mantar, both in New Delhi and in Jaipur. Now these clocks used to function on the principle of light and shadows. Light and shadows क्या होते हैं? Periodic motion होते हैं. What is periodic motion? Periodic motion is any motion that repeats itself in a period of time. The sun will rise every morning. It will set every evening. This is a periodic motion. The earth will spin on its axis, because of which days and nights are caused. This is again a periodic motion. Now the original clocks that were formed also worked on the principle of periodic motion. इनके अंदर एक पेंडुलम हुआ करता था. पेंडुलम को ऑसिलेट कराया जाता था. ऑसिलेट मीनिंग एक जगह पे टाई करके स्ट्रिंग के नीचे बॉब डाल दिया जाता है एंड दैट बॉब moves from one point to another. This is also a periodic motion. So when the bob moves from B to C to A and back to B, it completes one oscillation. Similarly, in oscillation को इस string की लेंथ के अकॉर्डिंगली हम 60 मिनट्स पे सेट कर सकते हैं. सो वी ऑल नो दैट 1 आवर इज इक्वल टू 60 मिनट्स एंड इस तरह से सबसे पहले पेंडुलम क्लॉक्स बनी थी. Nowadays we all are using quartz watches. What are quartz watches? We have studied about rocks and minerals. We know that minerals are naturally occurring elements in the earth. ऐसा ही एक मिनरल है जिसका नाम है क्वार्ट्ज. क्वार्ट्ज की क्या क्वालिटी है कि जब उसको थोड़ा सा भी इलेक्ट्रिक करंट मिलता है तो वो वाइब्रेट करना शुरू हो जाता है. सो इन क्लॉक्स के अंदर सेल्स और बैटरीज की हेल्प से क्वार्ट्ज को वाइब्रेट किया जाता है. जब क्वार्ट्ज की ये वाइब्रेशन होती है तो एक बहुत छोटी सी मोटर जो इन वॉचेस के अंदर होती है, इट बिगिंस टू मूव द नीडल्स ऑफ द वॉच एंड दैट इज हाउ the quartz watches work. So we all know what is the unit of time. The basic unit of time is second. 60 सेकेंड से क्या बनता है? 1 hour. और 24 hours से क्या बनता है? 1 day. This is how time is measured. कभी कभी हम टाइम मेजर करते हैं 12 आवर मेथड में और कभी कभी हम मेजर करते हैं 24 आवर मेथड में. सो व्हाट इज 12 आवर मेथड? 12 आवर मेथड में आप 1 o'clock को 1 o'clock लिखोगे, बट 24 आवर मेथड में आप 1 o'clock को 1300 hours लिखोगे. This is the difference between the two types of methods in which time is noted. Now let us come to the next important concept of this chapter, which is motion. जब हमें टाइम पता लग जाता है तो हमें ये भी पता लग जाता है कि हमें अपने घर से मार्केट जाने तक 10 minutes लगेंगे. We know that if we want to go from city A to city B, it is this many kilometers. So your father will quickly estimate and tell you, this is the time that we are going to take to cover this much distance. ये सब कैसे होता है? This is possible because when we put time and motion together, we get answers to many questions. So let us watch a short video to understand the concept of motion. We have learned that when a body moves from one place to another and changes its position with respect to the surroundings, it is said to be in motion. और motion के कितने type होते हैं? Straight line motion is known as rectilinear motion. Then if there is a certain thing like a top that is moving round, it is circular motion. The blades of a moving windmill or fan are rotational motion. And the moving of a pendulum clock is periodic motion. हम ये भी पता लगा सकते हैं कि एक ऑब्जेक्ट फास्ट है या स्लो. नाउ इन दिस पिक्चर वी हैव टेकन द सेम डिस्टेंस एंड वी हैव मूव्ड 2 ऑब्जेक्ट्स ओवर दिस डिस्टेंस. जो ऑब्जेक्ट इस डिस्टेंस को जल्दी कवर करेगा उसे बोलेंगे फास्ट, और जो ऑब्जेक्ट इस डिस्टेंस को धीरे कवर करेगा उसको बोलेंगे स्लो. सो दिस measurement of fast and slow objects is known as speed. Speed क्या होती है? Speed is measured in unit time. Speed is the distance traveled by a vehicle divided by the time taken by that vehicle to cover that distance. So if a car covers a distance of 200 kilometers in 4 hours, the speed can be measured by dividing 200 kilometer, which is the distance, by the time taken, which is 4 hours. So this gives us the answer 50 kilometers per hour. Now speed का जो standard unit होता है वो होता है meters per second. But here we have measured the speed in kilometer per hour. Even in our moving car, the speedometer, which is right there on the dashboard of the car, tells us in kilometer per hour the speed on which the car is traveling. और distance बताता है odometer. Odometer is once again located on the dashboard. So we can calculate the average speed of a vehicle by dividing the total distance traveled by the vehicle by the total time taken to travel that distance. This is a simple formula that we use in case of all the activities that we do all around us. Now we know that motion का मतलब है the change of position of an object from one place to another with respect to the environment. अब motion दो type की हो सकती है. Let us understand with a simple example. Suppose एक train ने city A से लेकर city B तक travel करना है. इसके बीच में there are two stations, station 1 and station 2. So जब A station 1 तक जाती है, it is traveling at a speed of, for example, 45 km per hour. Next, when the train travels from station 1 to 2, it probably travels at a higher speed. It travels at 100 km per hour. Again, it stops at 2. And from here till B, it travels again at a very fast speed, which may be 150 km per hour. इसका मतलब throughout train की speed uniform नहीं थी. It was non-uniform motion. Non-uniform motion means when the speed keeps on changing. On the other hand, if a train travels from A to B at one single speed, which is 150 kilometers per hour, then this is said to be uniform motion because it is not changing its speed anywhere. Now, to understand graphically the difference between uniform motion and non-uniform motion, we are going to look at these pictures. So, the first graph here shows us यूनिफॉर्म मोशन. इस ग्राफ में एक्स एक्सिस पे हमने दिखाया है टाइम इन मिनट्स और वाई एक्सिस पे हमने दिखाया है डिस्टेंस इन मीटर्स. एज यू कैन सी दिस ऑब्जेक्ट which is shown in red color is traveling equal distances at equal periods of times. So this is uniform motion. On the other hand, in this particular graph, again x axis पे है time in minutes, y axis पे है distance in meters. But as you can see the red line, it is not a straight line. The object is traveling different distances at different periods of time. This is known as non-uniform motion. So in this chapter, you have learned the importance of measurement of time. You have learned about how time is measured now, how time was measured earlier. You have learned about the different kinds of motion. You have also learned how to plot a distance time graph. Thank you.